What separates businesses that scale successfully from those who plateau? In part 3 of our series, we explore the art and science of scaling businesses and building systems. Entrepreneurs share how they evolve from small operations to thriving enterprises, crafting processes, leading teams, and building accountability. Discover why clarity is key and how to stay focused, and when to shift from driving the bus to directing the traffic. Whether you're expanding for the first time or running a growing enterprise, these stories reveal essential strategies for balancing systems and entrepreneurial spirit to scale your sustainability. Hope you guys enjoy. Have a wonderful holiday. God bless you. So you are 8 years in business. You've got 2 locations. Both are in the back of clothing stores that Vince, your now husband, owns. The second restaurant, how big is it? How many square feet? Is it similar to the
Same thing? Teeny tiny. Yeah.
And you guys are washing dishes, cutting lettuce. I mean, I just love it. And then you make this decision to jump and get your own storefront and start to take Mandy's to the next level.
Yeah. My husband's lease in Westmount, the original location, was up and he didn't want to renew the lease. And at that point we were at a huge crossroads. We had never paid rent before. So we were scratching our heads and saying, is this it? Is this the goal? Is this the dream? Are we going to do this? And, Mandy and I believed in it so much. And so did Vince at the time. And he said, you guys can 100% do this. We're going to find a space right around here. You're not going to dissuade our existing clients and they're still going to come back. And we found a little cupcake shop 1 block down for us that was for sale for $50,000. And so we went to my mom. My dad had passed away and she gave us $50,000 to buy this little cupcake shop. And I remember the first day opening, we had my brother sitting on the old stairs of the other location, like telling people that we were just a block over and that we were still there. And we were so scared that nobody was going to come.
Oh my God, it's classic.
And it was literally day 2. And again, there's no internet, there's nothing. Day 2, it was lined up around the block.
And so for me, that scale phase, as I speak to Neville, was find the very, very best people to do the roles that you can afford. And, my business now, I've got over 200 staff. We can afford different people. We can afford real specialists, but you can't do that at the start. You've got to find more generalists and you've got to just, you've got to mitigate for that generalist and help them and encourage them and help them to grow. But that's just a reality. When you have a business of say 10 or 20 people, or, you can't have a full executive team. You're not going to have a CFO and a COO and a chief product officer and a chief people officer. You're not going to have all that. You just can't. But that for me is why I always wanted to scale, because I always felt that if you could retain entrepreneurship and have the resources from a financial perspective, from the people perspective, that's how you really multiply your impact.
The space between where you are and where you want to be. I mean, that's all the problem is in business. I'm here, I want to be there, and in between that gap is the problem. And oftentimes we focus on the thing that isn't really the problem. It's the symptom. And I'll give you an example. I want to be more profitable. People identify that, okay, I've got my sales to where they want to be, but I want to be more profitable as a business. And they think profit is their problem. That's just the symptom. But what the cause of that is bad scheduling, bad accountability, not having the right systems in place.
That's what needs to be in place to get to the next step. And I always looked up to Mark as well. With what he'd done with systems is absolutely crazy, but also other guys in the industry. And that's the only way they're scaling is more systems and delegating more. And that's the next step to delegating, is having the systems in place so you can throw anyone into my shoes or my assistant's shoes or whoever's shoes and they can run it as well.
Selling is earning the right to make a recommendation. I repeat, it's earning the right to make a recommendation. What that means is you should never, ever, 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 ever invite somebody to act on the purchase of your product or service unless you can say these words first. And the words you should look to say first are the words because of the fact that you said. Because of the fact that you said blank, blank, and blank, for those reasons, I'd recommend blank, blank, and blank.
If you look back and kind of recall, those times being in the apartment, what were the toughest things? What were the hardest things to overcome that if you were to give advice to a young entrepreneur that was trying to start out, what would it be from those days?
It depends on the entrepreneur. Like for me, I like to know how things work, why they work, make it better, fix the machine, like, really get the nuts and bolts of stuff to be moving well. So for me, the thing that was actually tough was staying focused on growing our number of subscribers or number of members, because I knew that every time we sell a box, we're losing $40. Probably not a good idea to sell more boxes, guys. Like, let's go and fix that first. We're like, no, we need to, like, it'll take care of itself. We'll get some scale. We'll do it. And John was very adamant and singular in that kind of that focus, and it ended up working out obviously very, very well. So for me, the toughest thing was saying, stay focused, stay focused. There's a million things broken. Your business looks like a piece of junk, but stay focused on the one thing that matters. And ultimately the other stuff will get solved by themselves, or you will have time to solve them at another point. So I think that's just so critical, because at the beginning, everything's on fire. It looks like crap. You're not proud of any of the way the sausage is made, but stick with it. Like, it's just, it can get better in a lot of different ways. And if you over engineer it at the beginning, you're not going to have any customers anyway. So it doesn't really matter. Just start.
You guys had a single vision of growing subscribers or users or clients, and then like put aside all the stuff that you can get sucked into in the minutia of the business and keep track on that singular focus and don't let go of it.
Yeah, we had a scoreboard in the apartment that was just a whiteboard, and at the end of the week or the end of the month, it was 100 subscribers, and then 200 subscribers, and then 300 subscribers, and then that was it. It was just the only thing on the whiteboard was the ending balance of that month, and it worked.
Business is an analytical sport. The competition is firing live rounds. Your business lives or dies. And the competition can take you out. The environment can take you out. A change in environment. People are going to learn this. We're going to see this over the course of the next year. The environment is going to take out a lot of businesses. There's going to be a lot of influence out there. And people who are working and relying on their hard work, they're not going to make it because they're not assessing, they're not reassessing, they're not analyzing, they're not thinking. I mean, 4 to 5 days of my week, 20 minutes minimum, 20 to 30 minutes of 5 days a week, I just will sit with one question and think. This is a great tool I learned from my mentor, Keith Cunningham. It's called Think Time. Sit with a piece of paper and a pen. Use an iPad. You need to have something in your hand. You put the pen on a piece of paper, and for 20 to 30 minutes, that pen never comes off the paper, no matter what. The think time could go off into like never land. I mean, it could be pie in the sky thinking. The exercise of continually thinking and using your brain about solving one problem, not 10 problems, one question for 20 minutes straight. It is an unbelievable tool. I challenge anybody to do it. It has been so fantastic for me to be able to just spend that 20 minutes on a problem. You talked about processes. If there was one process that I could implement in my business that would make a 2x difference in our performance, what would that be? And you sit and think on that for 20 minutes and you'll be shocked. But do not let that pen come off the paper. You'll be shocked at what you come up with. And then afterwards, you go through and you circle the main key ideas, take those key ideas, put them on a piece of paper. From them, you could maybe transform another question that might help you refine your thinking. And you could almost think about the same topic for an entire week.
We don't have all of the answers, and we've been really good at bringing in people that do have more experience and expertise than we do. I think that's a really important part of being an entrepreneur also, not being scared at what other people can bring to the table that are as good as you and hopefully better than what you do, and just knowing what you do best and knowing what other people do best. So bringing in people from HR and operations that are well experienced that come from similar industries that have been able to implement process for us around that communication. So I can get into details about the process of it, but a lot of it comes through training. And then there's follow-up trainings, and the way the company communication happens on a weekly, if not daily basis with district managers, et cetera, is really important. We do a lot of rallies in our locations. There's a lot of communication and feedback. Feedback is one of our values in the company, and we really, I think, do stand by it.
For me, the thing I was most proud of in my landscape company all through those years was always that I could pay more. And that meant that we were more efficient. Early in my career, I wanted to grow the business, and it wasn't for money. It was just for the challenge. When I started to grow the business and really started to look at the revenue and it was starting to really stack up, I started to notice that the revenue that I was producing per hour from each employee was actually dropping. And so my goals completely changed. My goals weren't top line revenue or net profit. I just changed my goal to revenue per hour. And I decided the industry that I was serving, landscape industry, was typically around $100 per hour with labor, material, and equipment all combined. And I decided that I wanted to really blow that number away, which meant that I was the best in the industry. So I just kept working on that number over and over and over, year after year after year. And when I ended up hitting, a top 100 in my industry on the US and Canada top 100 list, I got to 60th on the list, I think my first year that I got on that top 100 list. And I didn't care about the revenue number. All I did was look at revenue per hour, which all I had to do is look at was total full-time employees and total revenue and just see exactly where I was.
Clarity is king. People always use the other C word, cash. And cash is super important. But those kinds of resources are available anywhere. But clarity is trained. I mean, you have to acquire that through a heap ton of thinking. The biggest problem that people have is they don't think they should have problems. They think that everything should be running smoothly and effectively and efficiently, whether it's their home, whether it's their health, whether it's their business, their kids. It's like, you're going to have problems. One of the questions I find helps me a lot is this a normal problem or an abnormal problem? And so, for example, in business, an abnormal problem, at this stage or this size of your business would be if you were still working on the end of a shovel, the size of your business, that would be an abnormal problem. If you have $50,000 in revenue and you're in the office and you're not on the end of a shovel, that's an abnormal problem. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really the life cycle of what your business is. It's no different than a life cycle of a human. Are you infant stage? Are you at toddler stage? Are you at teenager stage, adult stage, midlife? And then beyond midlife becomes a overaged and then dead.
Yeah.
And so, somewhere in that lifespan of a business, you have to understand and identify, hey, where's my business?
Half a decision maker can't make a whole decision. So, if you're speaking to the head of events, but the head of events also needs the buy-in of the SVP and the CEO in order to be able to move forward with things, then you sell to the point of buy-in of the individual to get to a point that the individual is fully bought in as a stakeholder on the vision that you're looking to try and create, but you don't ask that person to sign the contract. What does that look like? It looks like the creation of a hypothetical world, and you label at the front end. Like, I know for a fact we're not going to be signing any contracts on this today. I know for certain that there is no way that we're going to be able to commit towards XYZ happening to solve ABC problem. I know that for certain. But hypothetically speaking, if you were in the driving seat and the sole decision maker and being able to get this done. Why don't we just jam that out together to see what this could look like so that we can come up with a number and a recommendation so that when we find the time to be able to sit down with the CEO and the SVP and explore this possibility further, we're at least aligned on what we believe the best recommendation is. But that makes sense. So we create this hypothetical world for us to be able to explore the entire sales process in to get to aligned recommendation. And it's now me and ally then in a position to say, so where do we go from here?
Before you do anything, document what exists right here and now, because it's really hard to have an effect on something if you don't even know what the heck it is to begin with. Most sales trainers or most sales consulting companies that come in, they usually walk in the door and they start plugging in their process to things. I would just say that's the kiss of death, because now you're just adding more ingredients to an already mixed up soup.
Right. I was thinking as you were talking, I'm like, geez, if of all the companies that you go into and coach, how many would not have a documented sales process?
98%.
Really? 98%?
If you want to just take one skill and just load up on one thing, it's turn your sales process into a massively emotional experience. If you're not getting into emotion, if you're not getting into people's core meaning of working with you, you're going to lose to your competition. So what I mean by that, you need to have a sales process that opens up Pandora's box of what it would feel like if they decided to work with you, what it's felt like by not having you, what it's felt like to work with other people, your competitors, and perhaps they didn't get the result they want, or perhaps it's a terrible experience. And ultimately, you need to be able to drill into if they made this move, if they changed their behavior, or if they changed their service and they decide to work with you, what are they going to make that mean? And this is where most salespeople drop the ball. We see objections as a limiting belief. So it's not some unsurmountable thing, or it's not a barrier. It's no, this is a belief that my prospect has that's actually the doorway to the solution that they want. We just have to have a dialogue. We got to navigate through it. My sales team, the people that we work with, I hate to say, they eat objections for breakfast, but it's this element of we welcome the objections. We want them to happen because now we can have an honest dialogue in our sales engagement. So your question is very, very, it's brilliant, because yes, you need to know objections at the end of your engagement, because that's when the bolt will rear their head. But don't be surprised if they come out of the gates right out of the chute.
Accounting is the language of business. Like we said about A performers, you can't tell the winners from the losers if you're not following the scoreboard. And the scoreboard are your financial statements. If for whatever reason, if you want to sock money away for your kids' education, or if you want to grow your business, or you want to buy a house, or you want whatever, if you want to use it in business or use it in personal, you got to be managing these financial statements and the cost over time. I think the other piece that I would add about financial statements or critical drivers or the analytics of the numbers is make sure that in every component of your business, you have a best-in-class number. Whether it's in your sales department, in your service department, in your delivery costs, or your cost of goods sold, like what is the benchmark that you're looking to achieve? And you always measure against it. And the benchmark is a best-in-class number. And so you can look at 12 months of a year. And at the 12 months of the year, when you're looking at your percentage, it's like, okay, what do we do this month that allowed us to have a cost of goods sold of 27%? And all the other months were over 29. And it's like 2% on $1 million in sales is 20 grand. On $5 million in sales, it's 100 grand. And over 20 years of owning that business, it's $2 million. That's a lot of money. I mean, this is the stuff that is the deciding factor of whether you're eating steak or craft dinner.
I'm a big fan of altruistic persuasion. And let me unpack it. I'm not going to persuade you to do something because it's for my best interest. I'm going to persuade you because it's for your best interest. And there's a difference, because I want to help you. I want to advocate for you. I want to help you achieve your Mount Everest. Where do you want to go? Let's go there. And if that is something that I can help you navigate, I'm going to guide and advise for your best interests.
The victory should never be the closing of the deal. The victory should be the celebration of the result the client achieved that they exchanged their money for. The internal competition that is attached towards hustle and endeavor could perhaps be better positioned into areas of excellence through KPIs across a multifaceted dashboard that looks at higher levels of conversion, that looks at more meaningful metrics, that can help elevate an environment that when somebody is doing better than somebody else, that you're not envious of them or angry towards them. You're curious towards them to find out what they're doing that you're not doing. And the culture is one of competence growing competence, not competence creating separation.
Right.
Now that's a different role. Why? Because it requires patience. But everything about my sales process requires patience. It's about not rushing. Look at, the best teams in the world from a sports point of view. They didn't become the best teams because they had the most talented players. They didn't become the best teams because somebody created a great game plan for them to be able to operate on quickly. They became the best teams because of the way they connected and understood each other's strengths and were prepared to learn from each other, where everybody was humbled and everybody grew together.
How much do you think plays into this? When you accept money, now you have just changed your job from being, the business owner / operator, or, at some level you're still operating the business or you're still in the business. And now you've become this person who's accepted money, and now you are pleasing the people that gave you the money and you're reporting to them. And you really have to become a different, almost your identity has to change in terms of who you are and how you do business, because you just went from doing one thing to really doing a complete different thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think some people thrive in that structure, and others can see it as complete bog down and loss of control, right? So whatever meaning they attach to it will make a big difference on how the business can perform, because there's a lot of smart people out there that can add a lot of value, open doors, distribution channels, joint venture deals, whatever it may be. If you're going into another country, there's tons of people that can add a lot of value and give you money. But if you're focused on valuation or dilution only, you're probably giving up other things that over the life of the company could have generated a lot more value. And that was one of the reasons that we ended up going public as well. We had great private investors. We didn't have access to a ton of money in the private markets. We wanted to continue to grow, but as entrepreneurs in the business, we realized that through these private financings, if we were to sell the business, we wouldn't really get much money out of it. So we pretty much just gave ourselves a job. We're just taking a paycheck out of the business until the business grew to a certain size. And by going public, everybody owns common shares. It's all one class of economic rights, one class of voting rights. Everyone's equal. And we've actually gotten back the ownership of the company and voting power in the business. So
as we've grown with really awesome mentors, one of the most valuable pieces of advice was you can't drive the bus if you're sitting on the bus, right? We've always known what we do best and where our shortcomings are as humans, as individuals, and as that contributes to the business. And we've been very comfortable, as I was saying, building a team around us who do what they do best. So whether it's ops or finance or HR, or things that sometimes not only that we don't necessarily enjoy spending our time doing, but that we're not as good as somebody that we can bring in to do it. And Mandy and I are really, really clear about what we do really well. And that's been the contributing factors to the success of the company from the beginning. She makes really, really good food, and I'm really good at branding and design. And if we're not focused on those two things and spending time doing things that are not contributing to the company because there's people that could do it better than us, then we're failing. So we're very clear about that, and we look at a series of meetings, and we're really good at that now at the beginning of the week. And if any of those meetings don't contribute to those elements of Mandy and my talents, then it's not beneficial for the company, and it's not beneficial for Mandy and I. So we're very clear about the way that we spend our time and the value that we bring to the company. And we now, I feel so blessed to say this, but we get to spend time doing what we love to do and what we're good at doing. And I think that that's a part of the success.
Love, love, love what you're just saying there. Anything you monitor will get better. So the first thing I would say is that, what are you monitoring? As a business owner, if you have something that is not meeting your standard, then you're probably not monitoring it, or there's no accountability for it. In business and in life, you get what you tolerate. I mean, it's just that simple. And so the biggest problem many organizations have are the conversations that are not had. The minute that a behavior is displayed in your presence as an owner, it becomes the standard. And so if you see something that is not at your standard and you don't address it, you've just created the new standard. As the business grows, you have to have management in place who are willing to hold that standard as well. It starts at the top down. If you don't have a standard and you don't have a system, most people mistake movement for progress. They think they're busy, and because they're busy, they go, oh, I got this going on, I got that going on, and I'm here and I'm there, and oh shit, yeah, I'm really moving. But are you really making progress? Are you really moving your business forward? Are you really moving yourself forward? Then when you look at the end of the year, you go, fuck, what did we get done? It's a critical mistake that owners, they absolve themselves of accountability. I have a board of directors. I have a mastermind group that's been with me 15 years that calls me up my shit all the time. I have a forum of 9 or 10 successful people, like lawyers, business owners, CEOs, the collection of group of people for accountability. And then I have my wife. But I also have this other thing called You Inc. It is a question at the end of every day. If the board of directors evaluated my performance today, would I get a raise or would I get fired? And it's that black and white. I'm either getting fired or I'm getting a raise today. That's how I look at my performance every single day, depending on what your outcome is. And I measure myself towards my outcome. If you're a business person and you don't have a plan for the new year, whenever you do, it doesn't have to be January of the new year. It could be July. It could be September. It could be whatever. But what would you say has to be? What are the 4 or 5 things that have to be in a plan if you're going to develop it to maintain and keep on track?
I think starting with revenue, it makes it much easier to know how to plan expenses. So, how much revenue are you going to produce in the coming year? Then how much are you going to spend on labor or people to help you execute on that plan? And then what are your other cost of goods sold? And every business being different, could be many different things in many different businesses, but how are those cost of goods sold going to stack up to produce that revenue? How much overhead does the business have? And then, what is the gross profit? And when we calculate gross profit and take away that overhead, how much profit is left at the end of the day? So it's a pretty simple mathematical equation. Once you learn it, we've got revenue, cost of goods sold, we've got gross profit. We take away whatever the overhead costs are, and we're left with net profit. And so once I got really clear on that, it became easy for me to understand how much I could actually pay my staff. And then it became clear on how much I needed to charge for the work I was doing. And as I got better and better at that over the years, that was what allowed me to kind of optimize that revenue per hour. And it wasn't about charging customers egregious rates. That was never my plan. It was always, let's get more work done every day by motivating the team to think and act like business owners. The clarity that comes from setting 3 to 5 meaningful high-level goals that then cascade down to each department and each individual in the company in a way where they understand at any given time, they only do things that contribute to those key results. And if they're doing anything else, it's a waste of time. And so everybody gets really clear on where to spend their time.
We're wishing you a wonderful holiday season with your family and loved ones. From all of us at Business of Doing Business podcast and me personally, all the blessings to you guys, and thanks for listening and sharing with us throughout the year.